We are live here with David Clayton out of North Carolina 5, running against incumbent Virginia Foxx, and also going to be running in a three-way race, which we'll talk about in just a second. And I'll have David introduce himself as we let people get in here, though. I'm going to quickly say who I am. I am Kate Powell with Kate for the People, which is a random platform that I ended up with somehow in some weird way. I am doing a midterm candidate interview series where I talk to the candidates of our dreams. I have a list of 9 traits that I believe the candidates of our dreams should have, and I give everybody a chance to talk about why they fill some or all of those traits. I am not a purity politics person. I do not require anyone to necessarily hit every single one, but I do think that strengths in several will make for an organism that is strong in all overall. You can find me at Kate_for the people across all platforms, pretty much. And that is me. That's all that matters at this point. David Clayton, please introduce yourself to everyone who is listening now and will be listening later.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on your program. I am David Clayton. I'm running for the United States House of Representatives, challenging 82-year-old Virginia Foxx of North Carolina's District 5. District 5 stretches from Boone in western North Carolina all the way over to Greensboro and then north to Mount Airy. And it is a very, very gerrymandered district, as much of our state is. I am a self-described fiscally conservative progressive, because I believe that progressive policies are, in the long run, actually fiscally conservative. So the core of my campaign is getting us away from blue or nothing or red or nothing, getting us back to the red, white, and blue.
Amazing. I love that so much. David, please tell us more about your race in particular, because you are running as an independent. So what is that race going to look like? Why did you make that decision? And how is that going as far as the progress of running as an independent candidate?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's because of gerrymandering. I have been getting a small percentage of registered Democrats that are upset with me for running as an independent, even though I am previously a lifelong voting Democrat. But like I said, I am a fiscally conservative progressive. But here's the thing with gerrymandering is that our country as a whole can keep on doing this gerrymander war where we're splitting the maps up even more and adding more seats or taking away seats or adding more seats, and we'll be exactly where we still are, where nothing is getting accomplished. The only way to realistically defeat a gerrymander war with an incumbent who has gone undefeated with every single Democratic challenger for the past 20 years, 10 terms, is to give the people a viable actual third option, not the old antiquated third party throwaway vote, but in unprecedented times where we're seeing more registered as unaffiliated and more, upset with the failings of the Democratic Party and leaving the Democratic registration. And even on the Republican side, the traditional Republicans out there are upset with the MAGA party now and are leaving the Republican ticket. We are seeing across the nation, I think today, we have just at or just below more registered unaffiliated / independent voters than we do both registered Democrats and Republicans combined. And in North Carolina specifically, of all of our 50 states, has a massive amount of registered unaffiliated voters. So I understand, the blue no matter who crowd. I call them being upset with me and throwing out accusations that I'm going to split a vote. Well, nothing is possible in splitting a vote when there simply aren't not enough registered Democrats here to win. It is statistically, mathematically impossible. I've been told that me running will ensure Virginia Foxx retains her seat. So how would that be any different than any previous Democratic challenger for the past 20 years? Because no one has been able to defeat her. I do need Republican votes and unaffiliated votes to win. Respectfully, I do not need Democratic votes to win. And the Republicans I've been speaking out here, because of polarization and Trump's rhetoric and ever dividing our country further. They've got it ingrained in their head. They simply will not check the box of somebody with a D next to their name, even if that person happens to be the very best candidate and wants the best interest for those Republican voters. Um, they will vote for an independent, because the ones I'm speaking to out here in droves cannot stand someone like Virginia Foxx, who has done nothing but increased her own family's generational wealth. She couldn't even unlock a frontage road gate in assisting her own voter base fleeing for their lives down a mountainside from Hurricane Helene, because that frontage road butted up to her own property. That is the bare minimum, aside from securing FEMA funding for Hurricane Helene recovery and repair, aside from making sure that the workforce out here isn't mass replaced by AI and automation, and actually securing people's jobs and fighting for them to have a livable wage. There's so much that needs to be done, and a lot of these Republican voters out here, they're not all the diehard loyalist MAGA that are showing signs of just blatant racism or apathy for the loss of an American citizen's life yesterday at the hands of ICE, or bigoted. A lot of them just simply will not vote Democrat because it's put within their households that they will only vote Republican. Um, but that's gonna change, I think, in 2026 with a candidate such as myself that gives them a realistic option as an independent, as an unaffiliated independent.
Amazing. I love the theory and the thoughtfulness behind your strategy. It's not as an independent myself, I am always searching for a candidate with whom I can line up with. And of course, I've talked before, you've heard me talk about harm reduction and like you vote for the least harmful candidate when that's the only choice that you have. However, like you said, because of gerrymandering, your voters are voters who are programmed to not vote for Democrats.
Yeah.
The end. They're not coming at it with harm reduction. So when you already know that your electorate is simply never going to use that theory, no matter how good it would be for them, it's not a sense thing. It's simply a like I just don't vote Democrat, and here's all the reasons why, and whatever. Then for the sake of our own harm reduction as a nation, we need to then come up with a different strategy. I
Yeah.
was interviewing Kate Barr yesterday, who's in North Carolina 14, and she's running in the GOP primary. She's like, fine, then I'll just run as a Republican, like
Yeah,
whatever.
I saw that strategy of hers. I hope she pulls it off, because I remember that she came from the can't win strategy that was the beginning of her strategy. And a lot of the blue no matter who have come at me from every angle, saying, well, if you're so confident you can win, why don't you just run in the Democratic primary? And my response is, one, we're beyond the deadline for the official notice of candidacy, partisan candidacy notification. So I couldn't even do it if I wanted to at this point with the North Carolina Board of Elections. But two, even if I could, I'm fairly confident. I'm not fairly confident. I'm overly confident that I could easily, handily win the primary. But that still would leave the problem of losing the general election. I do not need Democratic votes to win. I need unaffiliated and Republican.
Exactly. And for those who are listening who are unfamiliar with North Carolina in particular, and this came up in the interview again with Kate Barr, is that you guys have hybrid primaries. So if the only ones who get to vote in a primary are unaffiliated or that party.
Right.
So you would basically just be courting Democrats and you're like, yeah, I would handily win them. Fantastic. That's not the general electorate, though. Like once we get to the general election, we'll be, great. Like that's all
Exactly.
absolutely not.
Exactly. And I'm even though I'm fiscally conservative in my economic policies, or government expenditures, I have a common sense fiscal conservative approach to it. Whereas I believe if some representative wants to enrich themselves further by giving their donor buddies tax cuts to their corporation or the rich, that's their prerogative. But damn you if you try to cut away from social service programs that are passing forensic audits as far as where the money is going out to. If they want to make those tax cuts for their rich buddies, so that their rich buddies keep on paying them, they can do so. But the first on the chopping block should be government programs where we have no idea
Where the
what
money
kind of waste, actual waste, fraud, and abuse is there because they've never passed an audit, like the Pentagon, like DHS. These budgets are so big and bloated, and there's so many dark channels behind them, and not a single one of those have ever passed an audit. But things like Medicaid and Medicare, Social Security routinely pass audits. So why are we attacking and penalizing the government programs that are functioning as they were designed to, and turning a blind eye to the biggest expenditure we have?
Exactly. I love how we talk about meritocracy on the other side of the aisle, the GOP side of the aisle. And it's like, great. I think that the emeritus programs are the ones who pass their audits, like you were just saying, and not the ones that it's just money that goes into some black hole somewhere. And we're like, so where did that go? No
Right.
one knows. Okay, fantastic.
And I
Um,
see one of your comments here saying conservative is a big red flag. And respectfully, I get that. Please try to look beyond topically single word answers because, as I previously said, I am a fiscal conservative, which is progressive because progressive policies in the long run give back more to the general public and cost less overall because they progressive policies are in the long run actually cost saving programs.
Yes, absolutely. And I do like that you're trying to recapture the language. And I saw the comment. I also understand the knee jerk reaction because it's unfortunately been used by neoliberal Democrats
Right.
who say like, oh, well, the reason that we're doing like market solutions and we're not trying to raise the minimum wage and whatever is we're trying to like let the corporations somehow give us prosperity or whatever story they tell themselves. And I'm a huge fan of co-opting or retaking language that is ours, or at least making it mean what it actually means, which, as you said, that's actually conservative.
Because
Instead of
under this presidency and his daily rhetoric, language is more important than ever before because he is bastardizing and weaponizing specific words.
correct. Yes, absolutely. All right, David, let's talk about who I think the candidate of our dreams looks like. And you tell me if you believe that you are, which I believe you are, but we'll just go down the list. So the 9 points of the candidates of our dreams are: one, take $0 in corporate campaign money. Two, term limits themselves and advances term limit legislation. And as you were just talking about Virginia Foxx and her 20 years in the House, I think I know where you stand on that. Three, reasserts their power over the Supreme Court / jurisdiction stripping and certiorari. Four, raises wages and reinstates corporate tax marginalization, including a top line of at least 80% for revenues over $1 billion. Increases tax marginalization for high net worth individuals to address pass through entities / partnerships. Six, bans stock buybacks, entirely ideally, but I'd also settle for corporations receiving any federal grant, contract, or tax credit to not be allowed to do a stock buyback. Number seven, invests in a robust, nimble, and strategic administrative state, including our immigration system in particular. Number eight, advances universal health care and education. And number nine, commits to multilateral, non-interventionist foreign policy. Grab one that you like and start talking about it.
I am 8 for 9 on that, and I'll actually say I'm 8.5 on that.
Okay. Yeah.
The state of the world with the last point on the non-confrontal policy. We're at a difficult point because of the actions of this administration and our adversaries above, and we need to be ready for anything and everything. I absolutely firmly believe in diplomacy first, weaponry last. That doesn't mean that if it comes our way that we just keep on moving the goalpost on saying when to say weapons last, when to act on weapons last. So I'm like an 8.5 on that.
Yeah.
But yes, diplomacy first, weapons last, every single time. I believe Bernie Sanders has basically, essentially, the exact same stance on that. Everything else, I'm completely on board with, including the preventing the corporate stock buybacks with their own profits, and not only that, you've got corporations that are doing it without their profits and dipping in illegally, but having some kind of legal loophole in dipping into their own employees, pensions and savings and 401ks, and we're gonna take your 401k that we had with this company, this hedge fund, and now we're gonna shift it over to this one. There's always a kickback on the end that they're pulling from the employees that built up those companies. And going further on that, I've got a piece of proposed legislation I'm still drawing up. It's in my head, but I'm calling it the 80/20 Act, because all of these corporations, for forever and ever and ever, from Greenspan, to, or is it Greenspan, Alan Greenspan, to Reagan and trickle economics and all that nonsense, have coined and marketed the phrasing of job creators. Well, we want to give tax cuts to these giant corporations because they're job creators and they'll trickle down, or this person's moving jobs in your town. As of today, with the technology, with automation, AI, that is no longer a fact of life. We are seeing more layoffs and replacement with automation and AI than ever before, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if those companies want to keep on receiving their tax cuts for the justification of being job creators, or they want to receive their subsidies for the justification of being job creators, or even going further, they even want to be um, um, permissible or allowed to vie for government contracts, then they need to have a minimum 80% human workforce to a 20% automation AI. You're not going to get the benefits of everybody's federal taxes in the annual budget and the appropriations if all you're doing is taking that money and firing American workforce.
Right. And building more data centers.
Exactly.
Draw down more on our public resources like utilities and whatnot. Yeah, no, 100%.
Exactly.
I love that so much. I don't even know what part I love the most. But I
I mean,
think that's
companies are free to fire everybody and go fully automated. It's a supposedly free market, capitalist society, even though I've got severe problems with the level of capitalism that we're at today. They're free to do that. I'm against big government intervention, but I I'm not going to contribute to you taking from the annual budget and subsidies and tax cuts and government contracts if you're not at least actually being job creators. You don't get to eat your cake and have it too, so to speak. There needs to be, we're at a time in history where the advancement of manufacturing technology and AI and automation is exploding exponentially, that we need to have stuff on the books right now, because these corporations just continue to take advantage of it until there's laws put on the books that state otherwise.
absolutely. I mean, and that's why they've been pushing so hard for this moratorium for 10 years, is they're like, "Please let us have like a decade of partying before you start regulating." It's like,
Right.
or not. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm not actually down for that.
Yeah.
I've been banging the drum for, it's free market. Fine, let's do the free market. If you have purely been making those profits with zero taxpayer dollars, you can fire whoever you want. You can buy back as much stock as you want. I
Yep.
don't care. But the minute a federal dollar goes into your bank account,
Yeah.
I have something to say about what you are doing to either inflate your stock price, get rid of your human resources, whatever, et cetera, and sundry, lower your tax liability, like all of that stuff. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I love that, and that's one of the reasons that I think I remain politically independent, is because I do think that there seems to be this disconnect between understanding like where capitalism starts and stops. Right? Like that's, like you said, the level of capitalism we've reached, that late stage, is insane. But it does serve a function in a democracy, right? And I firmly believe that. I realize there are people they come up in my comment section sometime and they yell at me about that, my stance on that. And I'm sorry, but it's history tells a pretty I think, compelling story of
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
pure communism does not work, right?
I've always said that communism is great on paper, but in practice, it doesn't play out that way. And you've got a large swath of younger generation that are reading it on paper and seeing how great it sounds on paper. But from our own historical experience of people that have lived under direct communism, it's not as all fluffy rainbows as it sounds on paper.
Correct. And so yeah, there's like this point where capitalism starts and stops, and then there's the point where socialism comes in. And this is, I loved, I didn't really understand like the democratic socialism thing until, I think Mom Donnie has been like their best champion for explaining like there's the services that should be universal.
Right.
And then there's the entrepreneurship and the creativity and the job creation and whatever. They can absolutely hold hands. And I'm like, yes, yes, this is what I've been trying to say my whole life. So
I mean, I can explain democratic socialism even shorter than that. The U.S. federal budget, 100% democratic socialism. Whether either side wants to admit it or not, our armed forces, our healthcare, what healthcare we do pay out to, SNAP or national parks, or maintaining our borders, all democratic socialism. We still allow for the free market, but there are certain services that the country is responsible for that the people have already paid out into and are continuing to pay out into.
exactly. I thank you so much for putting it that succinctly. Um,
Our capital is 100% funded by democratic socialism.
yes. Yep, it sure is. Um, were there any other points, campaign points, specifically maybe for North Carolina 5, David, that you wanted to get into and talk about? Like, if I'm elected tomorrow, this is how I would champion my district.
Yeah, here's the thing is going back to one of your points, I think it was number 2 or number 3 where you're talking about term limits. I know that those that are benefiting most off of the system right now, it'll be a hard pressed goal to get them to sign off on making term limits. I myself have already pledged publicly many times, and I am a man of my word. I'm when I win my race, I'm only going to be in there for 2 terms, 4 years, and then I'm out. I'm going to get in, pardon my French, fuck shit up that is the status quo of the system, remove roadblocks so that younger generations behind me can then get in and actually make changes that we all want to see. But until this just deeply entrenched, I mean, the whole MAGA rhetoric of the swamp wasn't far fetched. The only problem is they're all lying on their side because they are 1,000,000% adding to it and participating in it. But we do have a serious problem with corruption, and it's now not only illegal corruption, but because of things like Citizens United, legal corruption alike, that is taking away the definition of the word representative. So I will only be in there for 2 terms, 4 years, and that is my own self-professed term limit. As far as helping North Carolina directly, this is what they need. We are, whether you're for um, um, climate change or not, the proof is in the pudding that incremental weather is exponentially increasing and having more and more costly, life costing, and devastating effects to infrastructure and public safety, businesses, everything. We need to invest heavily when we do have a functioning FEMA. We also have a functioning Army Corps of Engineers that in the past presidencies, regardless if they were Republican or Democrat, built massive projects that were paramount to the 7 wonders of the world. We stopped doing that. Why are we not utilizing our Army Corps of Engineers to reinforce these areas that we know are heavily washout areas like the creek beds, river runs of Western North Carolina with Hurricane Helene, the infrastructure around Florida and the Keys and the rising sea level? Why are we not using our federally funded Army Corps of Engineers to put out not just the infrastructure projects that Civil Corps engineers has been doing through the Biden presidency, which is now being canceled left and right under this administration, but we need to reinforce and build up massive super projects of easements and waterways because this weather, these hurricanes, these tropical storms, tornadoes, all of it are going to keep happening. So we're not going to be able to stop the weather. I think we're actually beyond the point of being able to stop the weather, sadly, but we could be ready for it to mitigate loss of life, loss of business, loss of power and water and sewage and everything. There are steps we can take to mitigate um, damage like we saw with Hurricane Helene, um, and that will secure jobs. The area I'm in Western North Carolina, a small town called Lenore, every other business is empty, and it's a business for lease. It's a window for lease or an office space for lease. Um, Jobs are drying up. A lot of the major corporations around here are either Blue Ridge Energy, Duke Energy, or pharmaceuticals. Um, and people don't just want to work in those three industries, those two industries, utilities or pharmaceuticals. They went to school, they've got certification, they got training to work in a plethora of other professions. The businesses are drying up because Virginia Foxx hasn't done a damn thing to secure, and the Republican majority in the House Assembly out here, who still has yet to pass a state budget, a year and a half past due, has not passed a state budget. Um, they're not doing anything to secure the people's future in North Carolina. And it's not even just my district, just five. It's from the West Coast, the West mountainside to the East Coast. And the people are feeling it. And that's why I said there's every single Republican I've spoken out here cannot stand Virginia Foxx because she literally has not done anything but counted on the fact that it's gerrymandering and she's got an R next to her name that will secure an election. But they're tired of it, especially if they see another viable option. We need things in place um, that would prevent 66,000 people in District 5 from being kicked off of their Medicare because of the One Big Beautiful Bill. If I'd had my Budget Accountability Act in place, it said you can make cuts if you want, but it's not going to be from programs that pass audits. You've got to make cuts first from things that have never passed on, like the DOD, like the DHS. And they would never touch those things, so they wouldn't have ever passed the One Big Beautiful Bill. So there's things that should have been done decades upon decades ago. Common sense legislation. You know what? It's not even partisan. It's people. Every single one of my pieces of proposed legislation is not partisan geared at all. It's for the people. And that's what my campaign is all about. People and policy over party.
Amazing. Yep. For the people. Love it very, very much. David, thank you so much for your time today. I want you to spend the rest of your time plugging where people can find you, how they can be part of donating or volunteering, otherwise moving forward your campaign, and also talking about election dates, early voting, like all that stuff so that everyone is prepared and ready to support you.
Yeah, thank you so much. My official campaign website is Clayton, the number 4NC.com. I believe Kate's going to put it up after the fact when she posts this video. So Clayton, the number 4NC.com. And if you go to my issues page, you can see from priority, list in priority, my top goals. If you go to the About Me page, you can read up who I am, where I came from, what my backstory was, and why I became so frustrated with the state of everything, where it seems like there's so many things we can get done that you don't even have to be a rocket scientist to get some of this stuff done. We just have to get it done. We need candidates, we need representatives that aren't beholden to the pay to play system, but are actually the definition of the word representative and are doing what's best for the people, not what's best for them and their own stock portfolios and their, 1% uber wealthy class that are telling them what to do. I'm going to expose it all. That's my plan, to remove the roadblocks of the corruption. The internet's forever, and the sitting representatives, sitting incumbents that are dirty on the take, I'm going to make sure their lifetime legacy for their kids to see is exactly who they were and who they are. If you'd like to volunteer for my campaign, I'm still in the process of collecting signatures as an independent to get on the ballot. I have until March 3rd, so we're in a mad rush to get the last amount of signatures we need to qualify. But everything is federally filed and legit with the Federal Elections Commission. But you can contact my campaign manager at the email CM, so that's C is in cat or campaign manager, CM dot Clayton, the number 4NC at gmail.com. And she'd be more than happy to speak to you about volunteering. We've got already a big team growing out and more people reaching out every single day because people think that I'm going to do what I say and say what I do and not be about it or not just talk about it, but be about it because just too damn many people, many candidates included, they talk a big game, but they're not really willing to wear that body Kevlar and walking the halls of Congress if need be, because you're not afraid of who you might piss off.
Right. So we got to get you. We're petitioning. You have until March 3rd to get on the ballot for the general. The general is going to be November 3rd, of course, 2026 for everyone. If you haven't already marked your calendars for that date,
early voting November 3rd. Yeah. November 5th is the general election.
Yes, yes.
November 5th, yeah. And I believe early voting starts 2 weeks prior to that in North Carolina. Not sure about that. I think it's 2 weeks, but so roughly end of September, November, October, November. I always get those two confused. But anyway, 2 weeks prior to November 5th is the voting, and I'm confident we can do this and we can pull this out. And I'll just get in for 4 years. I'll call out the pardon my French again, the bullshit that is currently sitting in office, and introduce some bills that are nonpartisan for the longevity, safeguard, protection, and betterment of all Americans, regardless how you're registered to vote.
Amazing. I love it. David, thank you so much for taking the time today. Everyone, if you are listening now or will be listening on the recording later, please go to Clayton, the number 4nc.com to get plugged into this campaign. Remember, David is running as an independent, so he needs petitioning really, really like a lot to make that happen. And of course, coming out in full force, telling your GOP friends in North Carolina 5, hey, you actually do have an option besides Virginia Foxx, which I think, honestly, from my ear to the ground, everybody's waiting for. So you are the one we've been waiting for, David. Thank you so much again for your time today, and good luck with the campaign. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. Have a
My
great day.
pleasure, Kate. Thank you so much.
Of course.